What's interesting about today's topic, as I was developing the concept with Jeremy Swenson, first one up here to the table, is rather than talk about this kind of how we thought most of the time it gets covered as kind of defense and protection, we wanted to use it more the business enabler side and almost more I don't know if I want to quite go all the way to say on an offensive approach, but to view this topic in a little different way than what maybe you have seen it in the past. So with that, I want to introduce our panelists, and let's start with Ben Boras. Ben, closest person to my immediate left. And then we have Karen Anderson in the middle, and then Jeremy Swenson on the far end. And Ben is a security professional with experience supporting various levels of both the U.S. government and many different corporate entities, large and small. He also is founder of his own firm, Faz Altiones. And so Ben is here both as a security professional and as an entrepreneur. Karen is a technical solution architect at Worldwide Technology, where she specializes in strategic advisory services, cybersecurity, and a variety of other technical topics. And she's often sought out to resolve critical client issues. And I really like this part. She's very good at explaining things to people like me, coming from the business side and not necessarily the most technical of people. So Karen's a welcomed addition to our panel today. And then last but not least, Jeremy Swenson. Jeremy is at Tata Consultancy Services, where he's advisory manager of technology, governance, and risk for financial institutions. And I've known Jeremy for many, many years. He's had his own firm for 10 years, Abstract Forward Consulting. He does writing, podcasting, investing, researches a variety of threats, advises startups, and given many of the conversations we've had over the years, quite adept at kind of looking into the future, looking at his crystal ball, and predicting what's going to happen in the future. So Jeremy, a little bit of a futurist, and he and I have had some wonderful conversations over the years. So I think you're really going to enjoy today's panel. And let's start just by giving our panelists a moment to share a little bit more about their background. Ben, let's start with you. Add a little bit of color to what I told everybody about you.
Sure thing. Originally from Minnesota, mostly. Went to college in Minnesota. Got a 9/11 happened. Got a government job. Worked with the Department of Defense, essentially, with for 10 years roughly. Became a contractor, did some technical stuff, defensive, protecting computer systems, switched to offensive, going after computer systems, transitioned into forensics, mobile, other forensics, then went private sector, big companies, got some opportunities at some smaller companies, and medium-sized companies, and started my own.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, Ben. Can everybody hear? I want to make sure. Can everybody hear that in the back? Maybe lean a little in, okay, Ben, when you speak next time. Karen, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying lunch. So I was around in the 90s where if you could spell IT, you were in and they'd throw money at you. So I'm pretty good with spelling. I managed. I'm like, okay, great, let's do this. And I worked for Anderson Consulting at the time. And it's kind of funny because I now specialize in identity. And if you happen to take a look at my last name, it's Anderson. It's spelled like the windows. And no matter where I go, it's always with an O, which is really helpful because if I ever commit a crime, they'll never find my data, and I think that's brilliant. But even working for Anderson, they spelled my name wrong. But working in identity, then, you start to realize, if any one of you have ever had this happen, when you started a company, you have to start working through everything if you have to do a name change or any of those things. So focusing on identity, I try to make sense for people and to help them understand that a product alone is not going to be the answer for you, but how to have it make sense. And the beauty of identity is it touches pretty much everything, and that's another reason I like working in cybersecurity. It's all connected. You pull one string, the other side comes with it. And I've been in some right time at the right place and worked with some really fantastic people. I spent a lot of years at Kroll on track where we did electronic discovery. The FBI, the DOJ just came in and raided your company. What are you going to do next? And we would be the first people, boots on the ground. And we got to work on some really great stuff. So when he says forensics, I get all excited because that's really my world. And then also, if you're trying to find, we call them a custodian, but that right there is a challenge in the industry when you use a word that has multiple meanings, is who's the person whose data you're looking for. So getting any of that stuff related to identity right is important. So I'm just excited to be here with you and kind of break some of this down.
Great, thank you. Jeremy.
So great to be here, everybody. So I got started in technology back in the Napster era, for those of you who remember the Napster era. And actually, I'm also writing a book right now. It's almost done. I've been mentioning it to some of you guys prior to this. And one of the chapters kind of deals with sort of Napster and streaming and how that changed and is connected to where we are today. But since then, I've been at a number of companies, mostly banks, some healthcare companies, and really have kind of a well-rounded combination of both cybersecurity, process improvement, and kind of program management and general management consulting advisory skills. So happy to offer more as we get into this.
Great, thanks for being here, Jeremy, and thanks for helping pull this together. Questions, we're going to do one quick for each of you three. Let's start with Karen. If you had a piece of advice or some aspect of cybersecurity that you wish everybody here better understood, what would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are going to like this because it's completely free. So, well, it's easy to charge people a lot of money in this space. There's also some really great advice out there. And I wish people would take it to heart. It's simply slow down and be a little suspect. So I can take and I can deliver something to your phone and I can have it say the IRS. And there are people in this world that are going to go, oh my gosh, it's the IRS. It could be me. I can do it so easily. But people think, nope, it's on my phone. It says so right here. It's the reality. But that's not the case. So getting people to slow down. And it's really about the psychological aspect. If you make a decision in that 2 to 5 second time frame, you're not really thinking it through, and that's what they want you to do, is take action without thinking it through. So as we start to get into things like deep fakes and thinking about your own organization, paying a little attention, suddenly Jeremy starts buying new houses that are worth several $1 million. He's driving a Mercedes. Kind of go, gee, something's different about Jeremy. Let's check that out a little bit. But the more you slow down and you pay attention, it can really do a lot for you, both at your work and in your personal life. But everyone's so glued to their phone, they don't see what's going on around them. But the world's really brilliant when you slow down, sit back, and just watch.
Great, thank you. Ben, coming down here, talk a little bit about business impact analysis, or BIA, and how does that fit into risk management?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lane, to your...
Apologies. I was too close last time. Now I'm too far away. So BIA is really where your business should start in its risk approach. A business impact analysis is understanding, I would say, the 3 components of security that most people think is, many people think, is just one. The one that everyone really focuses on is confidentiality. And this is making a CIA reference. So everyone is worried about being hacked, you know, stuff like that. But the other 2 is the integrity of your data, not just the confidentiality, but also the availability of your data. So is the integrity, you know, do you have the right phone numbers associated with the right people? I've actually received emails from and phone calls from a substantial, large information security organization, and I don't know, maybe someone messed up a spreadsheet, but they think I'm Chris, or they think I'm, and I tell them to fix it, and they don't. So something happened with their data. The integrity of their data affected their business, basically. And then the last thing is availability. If you can't get to your data, or their data, if you can't get to the ability to, let's just say that your power's out and you can't You can't process credit cards because you don't have the tools available. You don't have a backup available. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about CIA. That's security. It's really those three functions. Those should be the core to your business impact analysis, or what's the important parts to all three of those. And then the last thing I'll say on the BIA, it's a starting point to understand if something happens, how would it impact you? There are two things that you should have with a BIA. And one is called, well, the acronym is RTO, Recovery Time Objectives. So how long is it going to take me to get the power back on? Okay, what's the objective? How long do I want it to take? And then the other one is, it's pretty same acronym, but instead of time, it's recovery point objective. So establish a point in what you'd have as a recovery process, and figure out how long it's going to take. The time and the point you need to get to are the two primary parts to the BIA. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So,
Jeremy, talk a little bit about, and the key word here is free, and we got from Karen some free advice on the last answer for her, but talk about some of the free kind of cyber training and assessment resources that you think are available for the SMB marketplace.
Absolutely. So CISA, which is a part of Department of Homeland Security, has been in sort of a PR outreach mode for the last couple of years, and there's a lot of free resources on the CISA website, and I would start for you small business owners to subscribe to the CISA alerts that fit your industry. So if you're a small business banker, there's CISA alerts that fit that, because you don't want to get the alerts that are retail and you're not retail. You want to get alerts, and these are about vulnerabilities, known fraud cases. Again, this is government trying to share the best information they can to help private industry, and all that's free. Another thing that you're going to get from CISA is a tool called Cybersecurity Assessment Tool, which is free. It's actually an application, and it's specifically for the SMB market. You can do a self-assessment of your security maturity. This tool to download is free. Install it, run it based on whatever industry you're in, based on the security framework you want to align to. If it's COBIT, whatever it is, you can set it, and that'll give you an output that'll assess your maturity and give you some generalized action items. It's a starting point. So those are two really good ones. I think OWASP also has some really good resources. They have open web application, top list of known vulnerability types for those of you that are dealing with web applications, and most small businesses are. So those are three resources that are all free, and just by going to YouTube or Google, you can find write-ups on how to use those tools. You don't necessarily need to hire a consultant if you know how to read and you know how to use YouTube. Certainly can hire one if you want to, but those are some of the free resources that I think will dial the risk back a little bit.
All right. Hey, question for everyone now, shifting gears right to our topic. Why should cybersecurity be thought of as a business enabler, say, like a company's revenue or products?
I want to start with this one, and I want to make a statement that might kind of shock some of you folks, and that is, it's either you're enabling the ransomware threat actors or you're enabling your business. Think about that for just a minute. That their business model, the ransomware threat actors, and ransomware is in the news everywhere, right? We just heard about UHG. There's other companies you've heard about. Some of you small business people, you may have had an attempt or you may have had it, but it's either you're enabling their business or your business. So that's why you should think of it as a business enabler, because you're securing your future revenue, you're ensuring confidence with your customer, you're showing due diligence and compliance. So those are some of the reasons why you want to think of it as an enabler to your business.
Yeah, and I'll add that nobody goes into business to have cybersecurity or IT. So there's a reason that you went into business, and you're probably very passionate about it. So you want to make sure that that continues, that you're protecting what matters to you. But you think about any of your clients and those things. So thinking about that reputation. So think about some of the organizations who've had an incident, how they reacted to it, and how it made you feel. You want to make sure that anyone that you're doing any business with or associating with leaves you feeling better about the case. And I think everyone takes a misstep. Anyone can have an incident. It's how you recover and how you acknowledge people and simply say, every data breach, I've received several data breach notifications. They all say, we take your data seriously. On the back are some ways to protect your data. And that's so ironic because you just lost my data, not me. So, but I think just having some sincerity about where you are in the process of investigating, but letting them know that you do take it seriously and you care about them, I think goes a huge way.
Yeah, I don't know, there's probably not much I can add to this one, but it shows that you care, and it doesn't show that the customer is a number. It shows that
They matter.
They're investing in you. So hey, guess what? We're investing back in you too, and it's I shouldn't say it's a complimentary Hallmark card, but it's like sending a card to them, basically, metaphorically, saying that, hey, we care so much that we're not going to tell you exactly what we do, because maybe we're giving away too much information, but we care about it's not the how we do it necessarily, but it's the what we do and why we do it. The how, like Jeremy said, might be some hackers in another foreign country. They want to know the how, because then they can dissect it. But it's the what you do and why, especially, and they're the who. So
let me just add one more metaphor here. If you think about a physical bank location, and the physical bank location is made of brick, it has cameras, it's architected in such a way that you can't get close to the tellers. Oftentimes there's bulletproof glass. And so the traditional bank is engineered and architected to protect cash and currency, right? And so we're in an environment where what has become more valuable is IT infrastructure and data, which represents currency. And so as a company, you need to be doing things to show customer confidence. And one of those things is, making sure that you have those SOC reports available for review. And those are basically security reports that show that you've tested things, and independent auditors have assessed that you're strong in those areas. And the other thing that you can do is show the public that you're training your staff, that you do cybersecurity awareness in October. Every month every October is Cyber Month, that you're doing something in that month to be cyber defensive. And then show an awareness of what the threat actors are doing. And you may not show this externally, this may be internal, but again, back to what I was saying about it's either the ransomware threat actors or it's you. This is a true statement, because the ransomware threat actors, they operate in non-Western countries with no legal friendly ties to the West, and they have contact centers with quality departments, with audit departments. They're very sophisticated. They're running a SaaS operation, and to them, they view it many of them view it as a legitimate business operation, meaning they think it's morally okay to extort you via ransomware. They literally think and believe that. You need to understand that. They do think and believe that in many of the non-Western countries, and the US government can do next to nothing about it. So the best thing you can do is be having a really strong defense that you're protecting your identity and access management, that you're using encryption, that you're managing your vendors and reducing your vendors to get the attack surface lower. All these things can really show your strength internally, and then the results will be external.
How about context or seasons? Are there times where cyber risks are going to be higher or lower, and how can business people either know that or figure that out or see that?
Yeah, so one of the things that you should really think about is what you put on the internet and what you share with people. So when you think about, I don't want to keep poking the bear on the same poor organization. But if it's a very busy season, or you're going to be away on vacation, or you're going to a big conference and you announce it, now I know you're not going to be in the office, which is a great time for me to try to spoof the CEO or to do some other type of business. Because if you're really busy, odds are I can do more malicious activity before you will notice it, because you're so focused on doing whatever is timely. So whether it's tax time, whether you're releasing a new movie, whatever you're doing that might involve moving large amounts of data is a great time for me to do the same thing and go undetected. I think it's fascinating. This is one of the reasons I love this industry, is again the psychological aspect, is what can I do that won't get you to think about me so I can go undetected. So going back to a very busy retail time, the hackers decided that they weren't going to move any data outside of the hours of like 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. because no one was really around or noticing then. And then during the day, it was really busy. And so it's interesting how they notice those patterns. So if you think a little bit like a hacker, and now I'm letting you know a little bit about my personality, is kind of thinking about how to reverse engineer this and what would be a vulnerable time, and being able to shore up some controls around that is going to help you go, you know what, when we're all out of the office, or this actually happened, I had a dentist appointment, I went to the dentist and there was nobody in the office, and I'm pretty good about managing my personal time. There was nobody in the office, it was unlocked, the front computer was unlocked. I actually went in and I took a picture of it. I could do anything. I had full access to their check stock. I had access to all of their payments from checks for other people. I walked around a little bit, but I didn't want to go too far in case something happened that was, don't want to find any bodies. But I was really shocked that somebody was so unaware with their business. And I have a feeling that the dentist had no idea. And when I mentioned it, oh yeah, we do this every day around lunchtime. But if you think about how connected dentist offices are nowadays with servers, PCs, things that are connected to the cloud, really expensive. Like I could have just taken everything from there, sold it on the side, and made a lot of money, not to mention all of your patient data. So just thinking a little bit different. And another thing I want to share that's free is IC3.gov. It stands for the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's monitored by the FBI, but they have some really fantastic information available. It talks about the different types of threats, the frauds that are occurring. Again, think about your business, but think about your personal life. Talk to your parents, talk to your kids. It's also, if you have ransomware, you want to go and file a complaint there because, well, it may not be a large enough dollar value to get the FBI or someone else involved. If they start to see enough modus operandi or an indication that it's a large enough organization, they're going to start to take action. And so it's where you're going to get some great leverage. It's free. Again, it's IC3.gov. It's a fantastic place. And honestly, even if it's small, register that complaint, and it's a great way to get some attention. And it's important for the FBI and people to know what type of activity is truly going on. If you don't report it, we don't know about it, and it goes undisclosed. And we don't want to see anyone become a victim.
If I may add, I'm pretty sure she has a new dentist by now. After seeing that, I have to at least put one joke in there. If she didn't, but that's the thing too, is it shows things like that show are the exact opposite that you want to show your clients, and being aware of what your clients need and need you to take that kind of information seriously is paramount to business. It's no longer that's your business differentiator right there. And the second thing I was going to add is a little off topic, but there's a saying, know your enemy. I won't go into music references, but know your enemy. If you don't, and it doesn't have to be external too. It might be other vectors, but there's something called a threat assessment. If you don't have the capability to do a threat assessment, outsource, get someone to do a threat assessment. Like, what are my threats? Who's trying to come after me? Who's hunting me? Who's hunting my customers? And I think I had another point. I might circle back to that, but those 2 points I just wanted to make. And yeah, I'll just
But that's so good. I mean, like insider threat, honestly, you have something that matters to you. And if it's your intellectual property, when you bring somebody on board, don't give them access to everything. And again, if you're paying attention, and I think about these things, how does this happen? It wasn't that long ago that a gentleman who was his last day, who was working for the federal government, he brought in an external drive, downloaded 53 terabytes. Have you ever tried to download anything? It takes for freaking ever. So 53 terabytes would take a long time. So Joe Contractor on his last day for the federal government walks in with an external hard drive and downloads 53 terabytes of sensitive data. Somebody should have been paying attention.
She's talking about Edward Snowden.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't even him. It happens repeatedly. But what I find fascinating is somebody's a contractor, you don't really even know them. Why are you even giving them access to sensitive information? But if you have intellectual property, there's some great stories out there. So the person who started Crumble, the cookie company, in Salt Lake City, the business community is such that everyone is nice. They're not going to take my intellectual property. I don't have to lock it down. Well, somebody stole his recipes, and now he's in a big legal battle over intellectual property. But he didn't protect it because he thought everyone was nice. I'm just going to tell you guys, not everyone is nice, and people change throughout the course of a lifetime. If you've ever gone through a divorce, or you've gone through an investigation, or something else, everyone's nice when it's a good day, but you have a bad day, people at the course of a lifetime start to change. And that's when you want to start to realize, is my secretary still in a healthy place, or am I making it alluring where she can start to embezzle? I mean, just watch the headlines. It's fascinating, the decisions people make. And then I often want to think, maybe I should apply at that company, because if you just walked away with $8 million undetected, is that job open? It's pretty fascinating. There's such great stories out there, and I find them wildly entertaining, but they're also a great way to learn. Follow Brian Krebs. I mean, he'll break down some of the biggest data breaches, and reading about that is really entertaining, but you get smarter also, and I think that's fantastic. What a way to learn.
How does Brian spell his last name for anybody who
It's
wants?
Krebs. He is not related to Chris Krebs. It's one of my favorite jokes. I love your brother, Chris Krebs, but they're not related. But try the joke on people and you'll figure out if they know the industry or not. So Chris Krebs was in the White House, and he actually was fired by a former president. But they have the same last name. They're around the same age. They're not relatives, but they're both brilliant.
So let's talk about the other big question. First one being, why is this a business enabler? Second one is to pay or not to pay. How should a business deal with a threat or ransomware, and how do they decide if they're going to pay or not?
I can start with the to pay or not to pay question, which is a very difficult one, and I think it should be dealt with some heart, especially since United Health Group is headquartered here. Obviously, a Fortune 500. This is SMB focused, but we can learn a lot from what went down there. So they did pay $22 million recently for a serious hack compromise, which the FBI was involved in. It even got escalated up to the White House. I mean, this was the largest healthcare hack in the history of the United States. And United Health Group decided to pay $22 million. Well, for them, that's just a drop in the bucket, right? For a small business, you're probably going to be $5,000, $10,000, et cetera. The problem with paying is that they usually come back a second or a third time. So when you pay, the things that you're considering is, well, one, you've got no guarantee that they deleted the data. They're a criminal, and no reason to think they're going to be honest, right? And two, or three really, they have anonymity. So there's multiple, I don't want to get too technical, but they have multiple layers of virtual machines and VPN. So basically they're masking and routing through a number of computers through different countries to be untraceable. And that allows them to be bold. And so in the case of United Health Group, again, God bless their souls, but they came back recently, just 2 days ago, it broke the news that they want more money. And this is a common pattern. So if you pay, it's pretty likely to expect that they're going to come back for more. However, I will say in the case of United Health Group, this was tied to medical systems in the real world, which is really concerning. I would say if it's a non-real world medical situation, definitely don't pay. If it's a medical situation, it's a more complex calculus. Karen?
Yeah, I have lots of strong feelings on this topic. For myself, I would say don't pay, but think about this before it happens. And I'm going to use the MGM. Now, just down the street, somebody else did pay the ransom. They decided not to. Now, I don't know them personally, so I'm not saying anything that's inside information. But what I do think is brilliant about them is they made the decision not to pay. And when they made that decision, they knew the uphill battle that they were going to face, but they didn't want to do business with somebody who's extorting them. The other thing they did, and I love this, and each of you can do this as well, they kept business going. They got out a piece of paper, they got out a pencil, they started checking people into their rooms. And so many organizations, including McDonald's recently, they had we misconfigured, now you can't order, everyone go home. You can't sell a hamburger because the menu's not on? Come on, people. Get a piece of paper. I mean, there was a time before we had the internet, get out the paper, get out the pen, keep serving your clients. It might be a little harder, it might be a manual effort, but you can keep going. So think about, what would you do if you weren't able to keep your business running with your systems? It's still possible, and I love that about them. They didn't do the ransom, and the other thing they did, which is so important, 2 executives were going out to an awards dinner because a wife was getting an award, and the first thing they realized, we've been compromised, let's stop using email. And that's brilliant, because if your network is compromised and you start communicating about what's your response plan, what steps are you going to take, that hacker's listening, and now he's a step ahead of you because you said, let's meet downstairs at this time, here's what we're gonna do, and they're watching and they're listening. And I work with some really big companies, and they're surprised, when the CEO joins the WebEx and the CEO is sitting here, and it makes me chuckle. I'm like, of course, because they're impostering and they've breached your network, they're now messing with you. So if you are compromised, find a different way to communicate, because otherwise it's like inviting them to the party and you don't want them as a guest. So find a different way to talk about what you're going to do.
Hey, Ben, can you talk about how backup relates to this?
There's a few different ways to do backup. And you really have to, this could be part of I said threat assessment before, but an overall risk assessment. Threat times vulnerability equals risk, right? So there's vulnerability assessments, there's threat assessments, and they, in essence, equal your risk assessment. Do a vulnerability assessment on how prepared you are for ransomware, or have someone do it. That also goes for BEC, business email compromise, which, I mean, there's ways to spoof emails too. They don't always have to be in your network too. And I'll touch on, yeah, there's also something called a watering hole approach. So a lot of times what they'll do is a threat actor will use a restaurant near your business. Say they know you're across from a Chinese restaurant, mom and pop Chinese restaurant. And you might be the business that owns a Chinese mom and pop restaurant, small business. A lot of vulnerabilities are, they will target you through that restaurant. They will compromise that restaurant, and they will learn things about you from that vector. I'm sorry.
All right.
Say again.
Actually, I'm gonna
Go to the next one.
I'm gonna flip into a couple of other
Sure.
questions.
I had another point. If you guys want to know later, I'll circle back.
Yeah,
to it.
by the way, anybody can come up and talk to the panelists here at the end and spend more time on this stuff. Got a bunch of questions. Clearly, once again, not going to get to all of them. Let me shift gears to kind of a lightning round. Give me one thing each, think 30-second response. How can somebody know, and what's a first or an early indication that the network has been compromised? What can they look out for kind of on the front end early warning system that there's a problem?
I can take this. So data flow is going to be abnormal. So you may see higher volumes of data going out at an odd period of time, and this is typically monitored. At a small business, it may be monitored by a third-party infrastructure provider. At a big business, they're probably monitoring it themselves. So that's one thing. Another thing is escalation of privilege, and not to get too technical, but what that means is essentially creating identities or emails that have escalating authority. So admin access to XYZ system, the accounting system. And so there's records of these things, and this can be tracked, can be detected. I know this gets kind of more IT. You guys aren't really IT people, but just think of creating more identities with higher levels of access, and the alerting that kind of comes from that. That can be an early indicator of compromise. Karen?
Yeah, I'll also say conditional access, right? So if you know I'm on vacation in Hawaii and suddenly you see that I'm trying to log in from Norway, that should be an indicator that, wow, that's a lot of time travel. So anything like that. Also, if you know I reside in a particular area, or maybe you have hostile countries, or you don't have somebody in a particular area, you can start doing things like geofencing or noticing, hey, you can only have one login at a time. And if you're suddenly doing something that's completely out of character, maybe go ahead and check into that.
MFA, multi-factor authentication. There are ways that they can actually get around certain kinds of multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentications. We all log in to bank accounts and things like that, but we know what those are. There are still ways around a lot of that. But one thing you should also be wary of is, you think anything you type on your computer, like your password is obfuscated on the screen. It turns up as
The stars.
dots or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, some of you probably know this, but the hackers have tools called keyloggers. They can put software on your computer that records every single thing you type. Even if you misspell something, hit backspace, they get everything. So you think your passwords will help you, you should have a second factor. And I'll just say briefly, going back to the backup question, depending on your business, something called SneakerNet, it's kind of a joke, but basically it's not connected to your network. So what you do is you update your backup to a separate network. So it's physically, they can't physically through the network get to your backup. That's one way to do it. There's some other ways to do it, but for small businesses, that's a good way to do it, because it's called SneakerNet, because you put on sneakers, you take the hard drive away from the computer and you go over somewhere else and put it in a drawer or put it somewhere locked up. So that's one good way, but I think a lot of people don't realize that. That might not be the approach for your business, but that's obviously a physically separated space that you don't have to worry about how much they've infiltrated your network, as long as you have that backup without them taking the information, obviously. So.
That's a big one, because ransomware is like poison ivy. So if your backup is connected to the network, and now I'm going to spread this disease all the way through it, I just affected your backup. And sometimes what happens is you have your backup scheduled, it's automatic, so you're like, oh, well, I'm not running a backup right now, I'm fine. But in 2 hours, it's going to open that connection, it's going to kick off, and it's going to get infected. So having that backup that's not connected to the network is one way that you have a fail-safe to go back to. He talked earlier about that real-time objective. How much do you have to make up since the last time you had that backup? Well, it's still better than having to start from zero. I've seen some companies have to do that, start all over. But just make sure, those types of things don't accidentally sneak up on you.
So just to summarize these two great points that they made, backup is the key. So everyone's worried about ransomware. If you have your backup dialed in correctly, you're fine. You should be able to restore. You might lose a little bit of data. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to pay the ransom. And all of you SMB folks, you can do that. You can set up a good backup procedure, whether it's with vendors, whether it's with yourself. You can do it. So just have faith in yourself that that's the solution. Backup, backup, backup. Remember that when you leave. Backup.
All right, 30 seconds each. What's the one bit of advice you want to give our entrepreneurs and business leaders here today as they plan out their IT and security strategies? We just got backup, so let's not do that one. So one more, 30 seconds each.
Know your capability before you're in an incident, because in the middle of an incident is not the time to become a do-it-yourselfer.
In conjunction with that really is, if you can't scope something or know something yourself, or don't have the time to learn something yourself, yeah, outsource is probably the best approach. But then know how to outsource, know the right questions to ask. Because you can outsource, you could inadvertently outsource to the ransomware hackers because they're pretending to be the one that they want you to outsource with, and then you just gave them the keys to the kingdom. I mean, that's how they work. That's their MO. So.
And I would say know the threats that are specific to your industry and size of company. A small real estate company is going to have a different type of ransomware threat than, say, a mid-sized community bank. There are different threats, different industries, manufacturing totally different. You're using those PLC devices in the manufacturing environment. Just know the threats for your industry for a similarly situated sized company.
All right, one more 30-second answer for each of you. What's the one thing you'd like the audience to take with them as it related to today's topic?
So I would say sign up for CISA and really engage with CISA. Go to the website, look at the alert signups, sign up for the ones that are in your industry, and every now and then go into one of those emails and look at those notices and see, is anything relevant to you? And most of the time it probably isn't going to be, but if you never look at those things, you're never going to know. That's it.
And Jeremy, CISA is CISA.
CISA, yeah, that's the cyber wing of Department of Homeland Security for private industry to be more cyber protected. And it's all free tax. Your taxes pay for that, so utilize it.
I would grow your network and get to know some people that you think are smart and that you can rely on. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So don't get overwhelmed. Don't think it's too hard. Get used to saying, I don't know, because if you want to learn something, get used to saying, I don't know, can you help me out? And somebody will help you. They don't have to charge. Maybe it's somebody who can just point you in the direction, like telling you to go check out CISA, or somebody else to follow. There might be some great organizations. I'm on the board at InfraGuard. We're the private public sector with the FBI. There's some great intel sharing. Right here in Minneapolis, the Hennepin County SHIELD program, they share intel for businesses in the area, what types of threats are going on. There's so many great resources. I would say make sure you're able to take advantage of those, and just, the more you know, the better prepared you can be.
The topics we've covered already, but I just want to reiterate them. BIA, if you start with a BIA if you haven't done it. If you don't know your landscape, if the lights are dark and you don't know where your threats are, where your vulnerabilities are, turn on the lights. Do a BIA. It's like turning on the lights. After that, take security as, like I said, CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'm sure a lot of you are here because of ransomware. That's a huge confidentiality thing, but what if they just get in your network and just delete everything and just start wiping, and then that they're just malicious. They're not trying to get anything. They're just, and yeah, I'd start with those two, and then threat times vulnerability equals risk. And if you want to know how risky your business is, or how much at risk they are, just understand the threats and then understand your vulnerabilities. And stick with that formula, or do it the other way around. You find out your vulnerabilities first and then find out your threats, I guess. But take that formula and make that an ethos.
All right, reminder to everybody, get a sticker for your parking ticket so you can get out. May 2nd, I will be talking about fundraising, growing your companies, and let's give a round of applause to our panelists.